Welcome to Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Helene Johnson. We begin this week's episode with the human tragedy caused by Hurricane Helene. Across 6 states, more than 220 people have now died and hundreds are still missing. But the full scope of the 600-mile disaster is still not clear, as many hard-hit areas are still without ways to communicate, as power and cell service has still not been restored more than a week after Helene hit. Helene crashed into Florida as a Category 4 hurricane on Thursday, September 26, bringing record storm surge above 15 feet, along with 140-mile-per-hour winds. 90% of homes were washed away in a community along Florida's Big Bend region where Helene made landfall. Then it was on to Georgia, where the governor compared the destruction to a bomb going off. But the highest death toll is in North Carolina, hundreds of miles from landfall, where the emergency is still unfolding. Many communities need food and fresh water, and with roads cut off, some volunteers are actually using mule teams to bring supplies to those stranded. CBS's Skylar Henry was just outside Asheville and has more on what some have been living through the past week.
The Southeast is suffering. Days after Hurricane Helene's hit, nowhere appears to be hit harder than western North Carolina, where some areas received more than 2 feet of rain. Roughly 600 people are still unaccounted for.
But this is just, it's hard to understand. I mean, this is just massive. This will take years to clean up if it's ever.
The city of Asheville and the area around it has been largely cut off since Friday. Cell service is mostly out. Electricity won't be restored for days, and help has been slow to arrive.
We've got a lot of family businesses that have been here since the turn of the century. They're devastated, and they're just trying to salvage anything that they can get.
10 miles east, the tiny mountain town of Swannanoa is named for the river that runs through it, the same river that washed it away.
And this town is devastated, but everybody focuses on big cities, not here. And we need help, we need food. And I know people are coming, I know they're coming, and I know God's got control. It really hurts to see such devastation.
Anita Crowder's husband had to use a chainsaw to get into her family's home. Her father died a week ago, and now they say the flood took what little they had left.
I can't imagine that it must be tough.
It is, to see everything he worked so hard for destroyed.
Yeah.
It's hard. These people worked hard for what they've got, and it breaks your heart.
Helene is now the deadliest hurricane to hit the United States since Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. Katrina caused nearly 1,400 deaths. While the full scope of the damage remains unclear as the recovery process continues across the Southeast, early estimates peg the total economic toll of the hurricane could be up to $160 billion, which would make it more costly than Katrina. Last week, we officially said goodbye to September and hello to October. But before we get into the outlook for the new month here in Central Texas, let's take a look back to what September brought us. Throughout the month of September, we saw a taste of both early fall and that pesky late summer heat. Here's a look at the low temperatures recorded at the Waco Regional Airport throughout the 30 days of September. We had a warm start to the month, but then a nice shot of cool fall-like air moved in, and temperatures even dropped down to 50 degrees on the 9th. That was actually the coldest start to a day in 140 days. Temperatures fluctuated up and down throughout the rest of the month, but when you add up all the morning lows recorded, you get an average low of 66.7 degrees, which is actually the normal average low for the month of September. We saw some crazy temperature swings in regards to our afternoon highs as well. The month kicked off with a refreshing break from the scorching heat that we dealt with in August, with a stretch of cooler than normal days for the majority of the first 2 weeks of the month. But as we approached the middle of the month, some triple-digit temperatures made a comeback. Now, towards the back half of the month, some cold fronts managed to scoot their way into Central Texas, and we saw some more temperature swings. But September 2024 will go down as a warmer than normal month, as the average high was 1.3 degrees above normal. So far this year, the last triple-digit day recorded at the Waco Regional Airport was on September 15th. Now, this is 17 days past the average last 100-degree day, which normally falls on August the 29th. But looking back to 2023, our last triple-digit day was on September 24th, and the year before that was on October 12th, which is the latest 100-degree temperatures have ever been recorded at Waco Regional. Unfortunately, September lacked in rainfall, which we definitely needed after coming out of a very dry summer season. Only 9 out of the 30 days last month featured measurable rainfall. That rain only totaling 1.17 inches at Waco Regional, which is 1.7 inches below average. Thanks to some wetter than normal months in the first half of the year, Central Texas is still at a surplus of rain for the year. January, April, and May were the only months this year to feature above normal rainfall. In fact, if it weren't for the month of May, we'd be in a serious rain deficit. All of the summertime months since May have been much drier than normal. Now, due to the recent lack of rainfall these past few months, we've started to see a drop in those lake levels. Behind me is an update on the current lake levels across Central Texas. Lake Waco is around 96% full and has come down more than 3 feet, 3.5 feet that is, in the last 3 months. Lake Whitney remains at 99% full, but has come down about 1/4 of a foot in the last 3 months. The rainfall early in the year significantly helped out our lakes across Bell County. Lake Belton was at 70% full prior to May and is now sitting at 96%, but has come down nearly 7 feet in the last 3 months. And it's a similar story for Stillhouse Hollow Lake as well. They're still sitting at 100% full, which is up from around 60% before the rain in the first half of the year. But due to these mostly rain-free months, the lake is now down 5 feet since July. Now let's get a look at the current drought monitor across Central Texas, which came out this past Thursday, October 3rd. As you can see behind me, we have abnormally dry conditions across areas near and east of Interstate 35. There are also some spots now of moderate drought across parts of Navarro and Freestone counties, and also across parts of Williamson and Milam County, that is rather. And good news for our western areas, that they remain drought-free as of the latest update. Now, we typically start to get that fall feel settling into Central Texas throughout the month of October. Here's more on what we should see and what the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting for us in Central Texas. We know that above normal temperatures have been the story so far this month, but we typically should see average highs start out at around 86 degrees on the first of the month, with average lows around 62 degrees. We see a nice drop in our temperatures throughout the 31 days of October as our days begin to grow shorter and shorter. By Halloween, our average high should be 75 degrees with an average low of 51. The hottest temperature ever recorded in the month of October was 101 degrees, which happened back in the years 1979 and 1989. And the coldest temperature recorded was 25 degrees, which happened back in 1993. Unfortunately, it's looking like warmer than normal temperatures may be the story for us this October. At least that's what the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting. Not only does the entire Lone Star State have a chance at above normal temperatures, but majority of the nation does as well. October is on average the second wettest month of the year for us in Central Texas. We should see around 4.41 inches of rain fall throughout the month, and we really need the rainfall as the past 4 months have been significantly drier for us in Central Texas. As far as records go, the wettest October to ever occur in Central Texas was back in 2015 when over 15 inches of rain fell at the Waco Regional Airport. The wettest October day on record was also in 2015 when 7.75 inches of rain fell on the 23rd. And wintry precipitation is very unlikely for us in Central Texas, but back in 1993, trace amounts of snow did fall on the 29th. But according to the Climate Prediction Center, they're predicting drier than normal conditions not only for us in Central Texas, but a large portion of the nation as well. The Southeast is the only place in the United States that's highlighted for above normal rainfall, and that's likely because forecasters are still predicting above normal activity for the Atlantic hurricane season. We start to lose quite a bit of daylight throughout the month of October. On the first of the month, we had a sunset time at 7:12, and towards the middle of the month, we say goodbye to those 7 p.m. sunset times. And by the end of the month on Halloween, we have a sunset time of 6:39. Throughout the 31 days of October, we lose 54 minutes and 36 seconds of daylight. And if you're wondering when it's time to set those clocks an hour backwards, daylight saving time comes to an end on the first Sunday of November, which takes place on November 3rd this year. Well, up next on Weather Extra, farmers' income has been going down while the price of just about everything has gone up. Jasmine Lotz joins us in studio with more on why this is happening and what could be done to help out local farmers. Welcome back to Weather Extra. I'm sure you've noticed it when shopping at the grocery store. Prices have been on the rise for the food we eat, but inflation is also affecting the people who make the food. The Texas Farm Bureau says farmers and ranchers' income went down 25% from 2 years ago, making 2024 the largest recorded year-to-year dollar drop in net farm income. The Bureau says that since operational costs are high and the prices they're receiving for their products are lower, it's creating unsustainable profits, sparking national security concerns without an adequate food production system. News 10's Jasmine Lotz spoke with a local farmer to see what they're saying about this topic. She joins us now in studio with more from those who are impacted and what the solution could be. Jasmine.
Some farmers say they are scared to see what the future will look like for them. Some say job security is on the line, and others may have to push back the retirement plans. I'm told farmers are worried for the next generation if Congress does not pass a farm bill. When you work on a farm, you're constantly on the move.
Trying to outguess the weather, trying to plan for the day, our needs for our crops, our livestock.
That's Robert Fleming of Fleming Grain and Cattle. He's a fifth-generation farmer and takes pride in his family's reputation of hard work and perseverance.
This farmland right here, my ancestors came here in the 1860s from the Kentucky, Tennessee area.
But what worries him is the future of his family's farm and those who will work it after him.
Just murdering farm and ranch families across the United States.
The Texas Farm Bureau says the profit farmers are seeing after paying operational expenses, known as net farm income, has dropped nearly $40 billion, or 25% lower this year than in 2023. The Bureau says the decline marks the second consecutive drop since record high farm income levels in 2022. Essentially, since production costs are higher, the commodity prices farmers are seeing are lower. Fleming says this reality forced him to think outside of the box so he can make a profit from his corn and wheat.
We can't use it all domestically here. What we can't use, we have to have big customers overseas to purchase it too, to keep the price in check to meet our price needs.
Some are calling it an agricultural recession.
Gary Joyner with the Texas Farm Bureau says inflation has raised everything from production costs to labor, interest rates, and property taxes. He says supply chain issues from the pandemic also increased prices.
I think America's consumers should be nervous about what's happening on America's farms. National security is food security, and farmers and ranchers right now are not having a profitable opportunity to continue to farm and ranch.
The farm and ranch communities, we're very concerned and very worried. Agriculture is always tightening our belts, and this year it's going to be so tight it's going to suffocate us. Our gross income just really can't stay in float with what it's going to cost to produce it.
Texas farmland declined more than 1.6 million acres with the loss of over 17,000 farms, according to the latest Census of Agriculture. Fleming says this makes it hard for his farming peers to retire from the business and for future farmers to have a solid foundation to start from.
Retirement comes on their age. When can I retire and not deal with this? I'm really concerned about our youth, the next generation of farmers and ranchers, the land availability, the capital investment it's going to take.
That's why farmers and ranchers across the nation are pleading for Congress to pass a new farm bill. That way, safety net provisions can be in place to help in times of economic stress.
They've been dragging their feet on a farm bill, and if there ever was time for a farm bill, with these type of prices that we're seeing in the commodity prices and livestock too. A farm bill is certainly in need.
Joyner says he finds it frustrating that Congress hasn't started working on the bill yet.
Other things are happening with an election season, and other items on the docket is forcing Congress to look at some other issues before they look at something like the Farm Bill. That's national security in our mind. Food production in our country is priority, and without an adequate food production system here in our country, we've got national security concerns. So we're hoping Congress will step up and start working on some of those agricultural provisions.
The Texas Farm Bureau says experts do not anticipate much improvement for net farm income. 2025 is still to be determined, since Congress or other legislation related to the Farm Bill could help improve net farm income. Reporting in the studio, Jasmine Lotz, KWTX News 10.
Up next on Weather Extra, Brady Taylor spoke with a scientist from NASA to learn more about their scientific balloon program and the research that's being conducted. We'll have this week's Degrees of Science when we come back.
Andrew, I guess, everyone thinks of NASA, they're thinking of launching rockets up into space and satellites and stuff like that. Why would you use balloons to do research?
That is a great question. Rockets are all very exciting and they do great work in the rocket world. But the balloons, for what we fly and where we fly, we give the science community access to the near space environment for extended periods of time, so hours, days, or weeks, or even months, depending on where we're launching and what we're launching, which is very valuable to the science community because it gives a long time to gather a lot of data, a lot of information, which they may not be able to do in some other platforms like rockets or airplanes.
With a balloon, is it where you can reuse that equipment over again?
You bet. That's one of the cool features about what we do, and we do foot stomp that one, is we can get your stuff back, and it's very valuable to these guys. I mean, they put a lot of time and effort into these instruments, these payloads, and when we launch it and fly it for them, and if we land on land, we'll go out there, we'll pick it up and hand it back to them. They can refurbish it, put it back together, and fly again. And we have several customers that we fly routinely. Just for that very purpose, just so they can keep on with the mission and gather more and more data.
What kind of observations or research are you doing with these balloons?
Oh, you name it. We satisfy a lot of the science community in heliophysics, astrophysics, earth science, you name it. And so we have folks who are looking at the sun, they're looking at the universe, they're looking at stars. You name it, we can help them out.
How high up in the atmosphere are these balloons going?
So they go up in a stratosphere. So for us, our typical range of altitudes are between 110 and 160,000 feet. And that depends on the weight of the payload, the size of the balloon, and a few other factors. But in that range, it's 110 to 160,000 feet.
So these balloons start out decent size. How much do they grow as they go up higher into the atmosphere?
A lot. So it's if you ever got to watch a video of how we do the launch process, we fill a very tiny portion of the balloon, and it may be 10% or so of the balloon, because as it ascends into the atmosphere and gets lower pressure atmosphere, the helium gas inside will expand to its full volume. So our workhorse balloon is a 39 million cubic foot balloon. That's a zero pressure balloon, and that balloon, when fully inflated, is about 450 feet across, so it's massive.
How long does it take a balloon to get from the ground up to the level that it levels off up that 100,000+ feet up?
It depends, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours, depends. For our 160,000, our balloon that goes 160,000 feet, that one can take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours because, well, it's way up there, but generally 2.5 to 3 hours is what we advertise.
All right, so you get this big balloon up there in the sky. How do you get the payload back down to the ground?
Great question, because like we talked about earlier, we want to get it back, right? So the balloon, the payload hangs beneath the balloon on a parachute that's free hanging. And so at the end of the mission, when everybody's happy and we found a safe spot to bring it down, we send a terminate command, and that terminate command will cut away the payload so that it falls to the ground underneath a parachute, and it'll float down and land. And then the balloon comes down separately in a big ball of plastic. And so that's how we bring both those pieces back to the ground, and we go find them, pick them up, and bring them home.
So you are in the middle of a project out at Fort Sumner, New Mexico. What kind of research are y'all doing with these payloads that are going up right now?
Well, again, we're hitting the gamut. So, we've had a couple of student flights because that's one of the things that we really cater to. In addition to the science community, is we're a developmental platform for students, and that's high school, college, and graduate students. So we've done a couple of those. We've done some astrophysics. We've done some heliophysics work.
You know, you were talking about the student payloads. How cool is that on y'all's end to know that you're helping kind of developing the next wave of science and space learning with these student payloads?
It's super cool, and it's really neat to get these young people in here, and they're really excited about what they're doing, and it's real hands-on work. They build a thing and they bring it to us, and we integrate it onto a gondola for them, and we fly it, and it's very satisfying both for them, obviously, and for us to see that we're helping bring that next generation of scientists and engineers and get them ready for the next adventure.
To hear more about NASA's scientific balloon program, scan the QR code right there on your screen to watch on YouTube, or go to KWTX.com/degrees of science. Weather Extra will be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. The moon has recently received a temporary friend. A tiny asteroid began to orbit Earth starting on September 29th and will essentially act as a mini moon. Researchers discovered the celestial object in August during a routine monitoring. It's been given the name 2024 PT5. However, it will only be around until November 25th before it returns to an asteroid belt revolving around the sun. And coming up next, in next week's episode of Degrees of Science, Brady Taylor had the opportunity to chat with a physics professor from Baylor about Earth's new mini-moon. To listen to their conversation, make sure to check out our Degrees of Science YouTube channel. That episode will drop this upcoming Wednesday, October 9th. You can scan the QR code right here behind me to subscribe so you don't miss it. Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. We'll see you right back here again next weekend. Have a great week, everyone.